Okay, this is getting completely out of control. The politics of rage, which is also the politics of self-righteousness, is just getting insane. It is not just Sarah Huckabee Sanders going with a bunch of friends to a restaurant in Virginia, the now famous Red Hen, and getting booted out because she works for President Trump. And by the way, when I talked about this on the air, I was stunned by how many major league pundits, of course, most of them are either on the left or are Trump-hating conservatives, were going, yeah, right on, she should have been kicked out. And the reaction on Twitter was much the same. People who don't like Trump, people who don't like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you're certainly free to criticize the White House press secretary, thought it was perfectly fine for some owner to just kick her out. There are laws only in D.C., Seattle, and the Virgin Islands that says you can't refuse to serve somebody based on their political affiliation or ideology. Maybe there should be more such laws as there are for other kinds of public accommodations. But then you go through these other incidents in which all kinds of Trump supporters and officials are being harassed. There's no other word for it in their daily lives. It happened twice to the Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen. Protesters gathered at her townhouse shouting, no sleep, and then, kind of got her chased out of a restaurant. Same thing happened when Stephen Miller, the White House aide who works on immigration, was confronted and called a fascist at a restaurant. And Pam Bondi, the Florida Attorney General, big Trump supporter, went to a movie, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Civility himself, and she had to be escorted out of there because of demonstrators getting right up in her face, an inch away, she says. Now, if you don't like Donald Trump's immigration policy, Sarah Sanders, Stephen Miller, whatever, it is fine to criticize them. It is fine to peacefully demonstrate. But this kind of stuff it makes me really angry, but I want to keep the anger under control because there's too much anger out there right now. And now we have a Democratic Congresswoman, Maxine Waters. She's not being subtle about this. Here's what she said at a rally. They, meaning Trump, people who work for Trump, the Trump cabinet, she actually said, they're not going to be able to go to a restaurant. They're not going to be able to go stop at a gas station. They're not going to be able to go shop at a department store. The people are going to turn on them. They're going to protest. They're going to absolutely harass them. That's her word. She says Trump cabinet members, when they go out in their daily lives, should be harassed. Now, just imagine what the Maxine Waters of the world would say if this was happening to anybody associated with the Obama administration, whether it was Eric Holder or David Axelrod, who, by the way, said he did not approve at all of what happened to Sarah Sanders, or Valerie Jarrett, or you name it. So, we're in a situation now where if it happens to the other side, the people you don't like, the people whose policies you detest, then it's okay. You cheer it. I see a lot of this on Twitter. And if it happens to your side, you are outraged, you are angry that your people are being harassed. This has got to stop. I say this no matter which side is doing it, no matter which the people of no matter which political party, which political philosophy are being hounded. It's not a fine line anymore. Now, some people say, well, look, President Trump, he is always on the attack. He uses a lot of strong language, and that's true. And people are entitled to push back verbally. But again, we're talking here now about harassment. When the president said the other day that maybe we should do away with due process for illegal immigrants and do away with the judges. They don't need hearings. Well, I can understand there being a very emotional reaction. I don't really think the president thinks he's going to enact that policy. I think, in a way, he's trying to get an overreaction to the other side. And then back on Sarah Sanders and the Red Hen. So, you had MSNBC contributor and Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin saying it's natural and appropriate for decent human beings to shame and shun the practitioners of Trump policies. You had CNN contributor Ana Navarro. You make choices in life, and there is a cost to being an accomplice to this cruel, deceitful administration. But if that's your standard, that you don't like the policies, you think it's cruel, inhumane, whatever, and therefore you can justify going up to people in a restaurant, kicking them out, not giving them service, harassing them at a movie theater, on the street, then you have crossed a line. I'm not just talking here about civility. I'm talking about common human decency. And if you justify that to yourself, oh, they're doing terrible things, this is the double standard of the Trump era. I don't recall it happening, certainly to this degree. There might have been isolated instances in any other administration, but the Trump haters are convinced that there's no boundaries, that there's no holds barred, that you got to go after people individually. And someday there's going to be a Democratic president, and a lot of people on the other side might adopt this same philosophy. Is it possible that we could just take it down a couple of notches and stop this kind of harassment and have a vigorous, aggressive, healthy policy debate without harassing people.